All right. Welcome to the session, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We are here to talk about how to secure a tech career for the long term in this crazy world of AI that we find ourselves in. So, we do find ourselves in this place where AI can write your code, it can write your emails, it can generate images, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So, what does that mean for us as technologists, and what do we need to think about going forward? So, that's what we're here to talk about today. I'm Amber Israelson. I'm a Pluralsight author. Have been working with Pluralsight for about 10 years now, doing a whole variety of different courses and topics. Most recently, I've been focused on machine learning, Gen AI, obviously the hot topic these days, and some cloud technologies as well. Over the years, I've worked at companies like GitHub and GoDaddy and a Microsoft consulting company. So I've been very involved with upskilling and reskilling as things change in tech, as they always do. So I think our current change is maybe a little bit more significant than some that we've been through, but I think it also offers a lot of opportunities. So I'm very excited to be involved with this session. I'm joined by Angie Jones. Angie, if you want to say hi.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Angie. I'm the head of developer relations at TBD, which is a business unit at Block. And before then, I worked at Tools, which is an AI powered automation company. So I've been working with AI before it was like the cool, accessible trend that it is today. And so, yeah, would love to share some insights and thoughts and have a conversation about this, Amber.
Yeah, awesome. And this really is just going to be a chat. I do have some statistics that I wanted to share just to kind of set the stage for this. But yeah, then let's get into it. So Pluralsight recently published their AI skills report. If you all haven't seen that, check it out. There's some really interesting information in there. But there's a couple that stood out to me, particularly relevant to what we're talking about today. One was that nearly 3 in 4 IT practitioners worried that their skills and their daily things that they do are going to become obsolete because of AI. 69% of IT professionals think that they're at least it's somewhat at risk of being replaced by AI. So I think the fear, the worry, it's real, it's there, as we can see from these numbers. But then another statistic was that 96% of IT professionals say that skills are where it's at. Keeping up with these AI skills is really the best way to secure your future in this new competitive market. So, you're kind of seeing the worry, but I think at the same time there's a recognition that upskilling is probably the best way that you can really thrive in this new environment. So I think all of those are super relevant to what we're talking about today, and that'll kind of be our jumping off point. Angie, would love your take. You're out there talking to developers and technologists every day. Um, what do you think about all of this? And from a technical skills perspective, what skills do folks need to focus on today?
Yeah, I get these sorts of questions a lot that align with the research. So I'm not surprised about that one bit. People are pretty fearful. Um, some so much that they're not even embracing AI. And I think that that's probably a mistake. As AI stands today, it's pretty much a tool. And if you think of it in that regard, you'd approach it like engineers do with any other tool within their toolkit, right? So you understand what problems that it's really good at solving. You understand its limitations. You understand how can you optimize for best results and when and where to use such a tool. So we've been using it quite a bit on my teams as well. And we can get into that later or now or whenever, but I can share like some of the ways that we're using it and how it's been more effective for our output. For example, we're building like a brand new developer toolkit, right? It doesn't have AI in the toolkit, but we developed this initially in TypeScript, and we saw the need to then produce additional toolkits in other programming languages, but we didn't have like folks on the team who were skilled in all of these various languages, right? So, for example, the TypeScript is great for if you're going to use this toolkit to do web development or something like that. However, if you want to do something like mobile development, then you might want a Swift SDK. Or if you want to do Android development, you might want a Kotlin or Java SDK, right? But again, the team didn't have those skills. So what we were able to do was design, what the toolkit looks like, what it should do, and basically create a spec. Go ahead and implement it in one language. And then we utilize like AI coding tools to be able to translate those things into these other languages, right? And so it's not like oh, here's my entire code base and convert it, but as you're looking at this feature by feature, you might say, okay, how do I now express this in another syntax, for example, right? And then, you would tweak it as you need, but it's been amazing for enabling us to put out various toolkits in various language in a really short amount of time.
That's a great example. Yeah, really understanding what the tools can be used for. And there's so many different tools. It feels like there's 100 new tools coming out every week. But yeah, how can you use each tool, to its strengths? I'm finding that every day, and it changes every day too. There's comparisons out there of like this model is better at coding and this is better at math and so on and so forth. So I think from a skills perspective, just get out there and get some hands on with the tools and see what they can do. Kind of find the ones that you prefer, find the ones that are better for certain use cases and that type of thing. Um, but I agree. I've definitely kind of heard the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt, the FUD out there. And just to kind of give my own take on this,
Yeah, I would love to hear it,
yeah,
Amber.
yeah. You hear all of these examples of, well, the industrial revolution and the printing press and the plow, like all of these things we've been through, which I think are all valid, and I get it, but I think some of those are also so far removed that maybe they're not helpful today so much. So I just think of my own career. Um, my first office job, we were using fax machines and typewriters. Dating myself a little bit here, but back then I couldn't have imagined the jobs of today. Cloud computing and information security and AI and ML and big data, and I mean, just it didn't even exist. There was no need for those kinds of jobs, and that wasn't that long ago. So as I think about 5, 10, 20 years from now, there's so many jobs that we don't even think of, don't even need today, that I think will be out there. So I think if you see this as a tool, a change, there's change for sure. But I think in the future there's going to be just a whole bunch of new types of jobs that we don't know about today. So I think if you kind of look at it like that, like there's opportunity. Yes, it's
Mhm.
going to be change, but I have to find the tools and use these like any other development tool, like you were saying. So, yeah, love to hear that example. Um, let's see, and then I think also just from a skills perspective, one thing that I have taught and am learning a lot about is prompt engineering. I don't know if that's kind of a buzzword in your space, Angie, but um, it's all about the prompt engineering these days, and getting these models to give you better answers. Any tips or advice you would have there?
Yeah, I think that's spot on actually. Like it's much like googling is how I think about it, right? So those who are good at googling things, they get answers faster, right? And that sounds silly to say, but you know that that's true. Like the way that you request information has an impact on like the information that you get back. And this is the same for prompting AI to provide info, right? Knowing what to ask and how to ask it, I feel is definitely a critical skill no matter what area of tech you work in.
Yeah, and I think it just makes you so much more efficient. I can ask things today and get a pretty solid answer right away, whereas, a year ago I would have to kind of fumble. And the models are getting better too, right? So it feels like they're kind of helping with that as well. But I think that's huge, and that might be a skill over time that just like Googling. Like it's just something that you do. It's something that you know how to do.
Something.
You don't really think about it, but for now, I would say that's a skill to have in your toolkit as well. And then making it customized for yourself. So at least in the open AI world, you can create a custom GPT and use custom instructions and an
Mhm.
assistant and
Mhm.
all of that. So that's really all about just feeding it context and instructions and letting it know about your background and your day-to-day job and all of this, so that you get better answers. So I think that's a huge part
Mhm.
of being successful and efficient in this new world as well. Um, any other tech skills that kind of pop out that folks should be focusing on?
I think specifically for people who are looking to learn more about AI, right? I think the key here is building. And you mentioned one that I hadn't thought of as necessarily practice, but you're right. And that's like those custom chat GPT things because it helps you understand how this is working under the covers without getting into all of the like science and thing behind it, right? But it helps you understand like how to build like a custom one with a custom knowledge set. And we've done that at my job as well for helping users with our on our documentation site, for example. So training like, a custom AI model that learns on our data that we are already producing. We're already producing like the content, the documentation, the API reference guides. And so for a user, they can come in and not just ask questions that are directly can be answered by the information there, but they can also take it a bit further to say like, how might I build something, with like a specific thing with this API, right? And given all of the information that our custom GPT has, it can produce like some pretty good results that can help people within their context. And so I think if you're someone who wants to like get into this space, I always say that building is the way to essentially like create like that muscle so that you're able to really understand this, um, what you're doing, but also making sure that it's not just theory, it's also practice, right? Another thing I really want to stress is for people to make sure that they're learning the foundational skills. And that kind of goes outside of the AI bubble, right? No matter what tools you use, I promise you that knowing the fundamentals is going to be your secret weapon because then you can build up on that. You can learn pretty much anything else, including AI, right?
I would definitely agree on that from a machine learning perspective. Even if you don't plan to be a machine learning engineer, you're not interested in coding or anything like that, it just feels like words have crept into the collective vocabulary of training models and inference. I'll be watching like a CNBC clip or something like that, and there'll be analysts on there talking about these words. I'm like, I don't like everybody's a machine learning expert suddenly, um, but I think that's super important just to get like a 101 level understanding at least of like what's really happening here. What is a model? What does it mean to train a model? What is inference? What is fine tuning? Some of the custom things that you were talking about. Again, even if you don't plan to kind of go there super deep dive on tech, just understand what people are
Right.
talking about. I think that will be super helpful, and just gives you a good foundation for building other skills, like you said. So yeah, would agree
Yep.
100%. Um, any advice for folks who um, are maybe just getting into tech? So, just to give a bit of my story as well. Way back when, I'm feeling very old in this conversation, but I got into tech kind of a little before the dot com bubble. So, late 90s, early 2000s. And the world was falling apart, and there was layoffs, and the jobs were going away, and there was just a lot of fear again of like, did I make the wrong decision? Was this like, why am I getting into tech? There's no future here, right? And of course, things have kind of been cyclical, and there's ups and there's downs and all of that, and tech came back in a big way. Um, but I'm wondering for folks who are, maybe just coming out of school or just getting into the job market, they could be seeing a similar thing with AI of like, oh my gosh, AI is gonna, take all of our jobs, and what does this look like? So, any kind of specialized advice for those folks who are just getting started?
Yeah, I would say definitely don't run from AI, embrace it. You turn on the flags for your tools that you're using, right? We can basically employ AI assistants in our code editors now, right? Allowing us to ask questions when you're stuck, right? Or have it refactor code to be more efficient. It's integrated in things like GitHub to help you better understand the code that you're reading, and perform more effective code reviews. So, in my opinion, and I don't say this lightly, Amber, AI is a must have tool for your modern day developer. And so I think that you should definitely embrace it. But here's the catch. Um, as someone who is new to tech, AI can be a crutch, and this is why I stress that people learn the fundamentals, right? Don't just mindlessly copy and paste like AI generated code, for example. And as impressive as these tools are, they often make mistakes. I've had to correct these tools more times than I can count because it's given me some like over engineered approach to solving, something that should be much simpler. But I was only able to even recognize that it was over engineered because I actually understand software engineering, right? And so for those who are just coming in the field, I think that's a really important thing to emphasize, that you use it as an assistant, right? Let that be your, some people call it like your think of it like an intern, or a rubber ducky to bounce ideas off of. And I think that it's really good in that context. But don't use it as like the gospel truth where you aren't thinking for yourself anymore, nor do you understand the output that is presenting. And based on like the research that you shared, this is true um, for executives who believe that their AI initiatives are going to fail without staff who can effectively use these AI tools. So I think that's a really important differentiator. I think back to, and I'm going to date myself here, Amber. I think back to when I got my very first tech job, and back then, Java, the Java programming language, was relatively new. And so people weren't using it. Well, they were just starting to use it in like, your corporate America, if you will. And because I had learned that so well, I had even gotten a certification on that, that made me more valuable as a junior person coming in who, I don't have a wealth of experience already. This is my first like big girl job or whatever, but that's something that gave me an advantage. And I see that now, like with this emerging AI tech, this is something that you can hone in on. And as everyone else who's kind of been in the fields, like Amber and I, we're like learning these new trends, you can bring a perspective like, oh, yeah, I've done it. I've built these things with it. And now you're adding value even as a junior employee.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I'm so glad you brought that up. And I think it also talks to the importance of always learning and being able to unlearn as well. I find, I mean, I will admit, I am a creature of habit. I find my thing that I like to do, and I just like, I'm not going to change, change is hard. So, yeah, I think for folks who have kind of lived with this and sort of grown up with this, or at least become comfortable with it now, um, you're in some ways actually ahead of folks who are maybe kind of
That's right.
resisting, or they're a little stuck in like what I did 20 years ago, that type of stuff. So always learning, always changing, and unlearning as well, I think is super important for any level of your career. So awesome points. And then I think there's also, would love your take on. We kind of talked about new jobs that we can't even imagine today. Probably, I think there's some that we can imagine around AI safety and security and ethics and transparency. Like there's a whole field around that. Um, folks to do reinforcement learning and labeling data. So there's stuff that is kind of slowly happening. Machine learning engineers obviously are going to be huge, but um, any any thoughts, takes on like new job opportunities or reskilling yourself for what maybe doesn't even exist right now?
Yeah, if you search the job boards, you'll see a lot of highly technical AI roles where advanced degrees and expert level AI experience is required, right? And you can really get intimidated by that and say, okay, that's not me. I'm not the person with like the PhD in machine learning or whatever. However, again, I'm going to point back to that Pluralsight AI report because it's really good. Only 12% of IT professionals have like this significant experience working with AI. So what I'm observing, Amber, in the field is that pretty much every tech company, um, and even some that I wouldn't necessarily consider a tech company, a traditional tech company, all of these companies are scrambling to figure out what their AI play is going to be, right? So they're experimenting with many different ideas to see what's going to stick. Now, what's interesting about this is it's creating opportunities for current employees who may already have deep domain knowledge, and now they can explore how AI may enhance their product offerings. And I just was talking to uh, an employee at my company, and he had shifted to working on like some research around how AI might be able to improve what we're delivering and things like that. So I thought that was really interesting because he's like, a subject matter expert in what we do, which is not AI, but he wanted to like get into that space. And so this was a way for him to do that without needing to go to another company and try to compete with people who are like literally looking for PhD, graduates with deep experience in AI. But he was able to like take what he did know, and explore something new and see if there's something there. And I'm seeing this across the board in a lot of different industries as these companies are beginning to explore like this new technology. They're using who they have. And so I'm sure like your company, whoever whatever company you work for, would love to hear your ideas about how they might be able to employ AI. And this gives you that chance to work on something. So I'm not going to name like any specific like fields or roles because I think those that I've seen listed are very specialized. But I'll say, like, whatever you're already doing, just start thinking about how might I be able to incorporate AI into this. And, is there a way? You don't gotta force it, but are there ideas that you have and you might be able to explore an opportunity to work on them?
Yeah, that's a great point. I do quite a few webinars for different companies through Pluralsight, and I totally agree. Every single one of them, they're scrambling. Like, what are we doing with AI? And our folks don't use this. They don't know the tools. We don't have a strategy. This is,
That's
even though
right.
it's kind of been out there for a little while now, it feels like companies are still figuring this out. So yeah, if they have great people who are super talented and enthusiastic and want to learn new things, um, yeah, go for it. You can kind of create a
Yeah.
role yourself. And I think that's actually a great segue into some of the soft skills that are important as well. So maybe you
Mm,
don't have the PhD in machine learning or some of these hard tech skills that we've talked about, but soft skills, I feel like are even more important maybe than they ever have been in this new sort of world. So, um, thoughts on that?
I would agree.
Yeah, what are you seeing? What do people need to focus on there?
Oh my gosh, Amber, is thinking and speaking for yourself a soft skill? Because if that is, I want to put that out there.
Advocating for yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
I sit on a panel that reviews conference talk proposals,
Mm.
right? And we just went through a batch of maybe about 500 something submissions. And it was so evident which of these abstracts were written by
Oh my gosh,
AI.
yes.
And there were quite a few of them, I must say. And this got boring really quickly, right? And I found myself beginning to crave for
Mm.
authentic human
Yep.
stories. You know what I mean? And so that's something I would say, like, again, with the whole like copy paste thing. I'm not saying don't use AI to assist you in these things, but please bring your human self to the equation, right? And to that point, I think human judgment is also a soft skill that might come in quite handy. So not just being able to analyze like the AI output for correctness, but also, like you mentioned earlier, for like ethical decision making and things like that, I think are really good skills that people could hone.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny.
What do you
My notes, I wrote almost the exact same thing that you just said, is that I'm craving authentic
think?
human writing and human contact. I can. It's funny when ChatGPT first came out. I was just so amazed that it could write a blog or it was just. I still am. I don't mean to be like all blasé that this is like nothing.
Right,
Um,
right.
but these days I can tell almost immediately if something came from AI, whether it's writing or an image or something like that, and it just makes me want that authentic like human experience. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I think leaning into being a human is way more important than ever. And we're kind of on the heels of the pandemic too, right? Where we didn't have a lot of human interaction, and so then we're coming into AI where we're kind of not having a lot of human interaction either. So yeah, I think kind of leaning into those things that humans are inherently good at. AI is good at rules based, very defined, task based stuff, whereas humans are better at um, complex problem solving and empathy and nuance and ambiguity. Like, I don't, maybe that'll change at some point, but I feel like there's things that we're just inherently better at and will probably be better at. So, focusing on um, complex problem solving, architecting, leadership, management, ethical decision making, um, negotiation, diplomacy, like all of these things. Even if that's not kind of your job, you might just think, oh, I just want to write code all day. There's still a lot of soft skills involved to be successful in that around, communication and teamwork and collaboration and so on. So, yeah, I would say just be human. I think it sounds. I thought maybe I was the only one feeling this way, a little bit of AI fatigue. But I just be a human. I think that will get you far these days.
I think so.
Yeah. Mm.
I think so. I think it's really refreshing.
Yeah.
It's really refreshing. And that's funny, right? Because I mean, all our lives we've had human interaction, but like now you're talking to like robots all day long. And so you
Yeah.
just
Yeah. And you can.
when you talk to a human, you really want to talk to a human,
Right. Yeah, and get together, go with some humans and have lunch or go have a coffee or go to a conference, now that all that stuff is happening again in the world. I think making those contacts is super important, networking. I actually had a chance to spend some time with friends and family earlier in the year who are not at all technical, not at all technical. ChatGPT never came up. AI never like. If I had brought up these things, I would have just got blank stares. But it was actually refreshing just to kind of unplug. So we're having this conversation about skilling up and being all AI, but I think kind of stepping back from that too and realizing that the humans are pretty amazing and this world is pretty amazing too. I think finding that balance is at least for me for my mental health is really helpful. So um, and then I think also on the you had mentioned hallucinations earlier. Um, it AI hallucinates. We all know that. It just makes stuff up. So I think if you can um, just build your expertise in something, and you can kind of become the go-to. So we're not going to trust AI for mission critical, whatever. But Jane or John or whomever over there is the expert. So I think if you can kind of establish yourself as the expert, or the person to go to for stuff, or you're easy to work with, kind of personal brand, easy to work with, get stuff done, all of that type of thing, is really good from a soft skills perspective as well.
Because there's such a shortage of technologists with AI skills, many of the larger companies and universities are starting to provide like free resources to upskill, right? Um, it's beneficial to them, the company, to build a workforce who's actually able to build with and utilize AI. So, for anyone who's looking to like gain these skills, you can take advantage of these free courses and workshops. I was talking to one of my mentees last week, and he was enrolled in a local community college that was offering like these free courses on AI, which I thought was super cool. So there's like those avenues as well. And um believe it or not, they even have some of these softer skill courses as well, like around some of the stuff that you mentioned, Amber, like the ethics and, policy and, just ethical judgment, all of these things, decision making, in the context of AI. So, if anyone is looking for like, how do I find these things? I'm sure there's lots in Pluralsight's um, catalog as well. So if you're subscribed here, that'll be a great place to look.
Yeah, love it. Um, yeah, and just other practical things that folks can do. I jotted down a few, and you had talked about it earlier. Be a builder. Just go out there and do stuff. Early days, I went and just built a full stack web application using ChatGPT in a new language that I didn't
Oh
know. So I wanted to
wow.
learn Flask. I wanted to build an application. Had never used it, so I thought I'm gonna see how ChatGPT does, just kind of being my own personal tutor. And
Yeah.
I mean, it took me a couple days, kind of off and on, but I had a fully working application. I learned a ton about Flask and kind of putting things together and all of that. And also, it made mistakes. I made mistakes, and so I actually think that's a really good skill to have, is being able to debug with the help of an AI assistant. So going back, kind of iterating, this failed. You paste in your error message or whatever. It'll give you some suggestions. So that to me is way more efficient than going all over Stack Overflow or Google or whatever. Just do it right there in the same tool. So I think just pick a language that you want to use, pick a project that you want to build, and just go out there and do it. I'm all for formal training obviously too, but I think just getting hands on with the tools is super super helpful. Building a custom GPT, we touched on that earlier. Learning new
I love
languages and
that.
all of that. So I just a practical takeaway, I would say, just go pick a tool, any tool. There's so many now that you can learn a lot, or maybe pick a couple different ones and kind of see how they compare. Like, would you prefer images out of Midjourney or Dolly, or I think just doing and being a builder is huge as far as practical next steps. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. How do you keep up to date on things, Angie, with stuff just changing so quickly?
You know, I've decided that I'm going to stay aware, but I cannot consume it all. It's just like way too much right now. It's literally everywhere you look. I've been to San Francisco a couple of times over the past year. And as soon as you get off the plane, like there's advertisements and there's billboards in the airports, on the streets, everywhere for some sort of AI solution, right? And everyone is trying to figure out their angle. And this could be like really overwhelming, especially if you're not in the thick of it. You know what I mean? So, my recommendation is to choose like one or two areas of AI to focus on and not attempt to try to like keep up with any and everything that you see. Like it's great to be aware. I like to be aware. So like all the tools you were mentioning, yep, I've heard of those. I know what they do. Have I used them all? No, I have not, because I just don't have the hours in the day to explore like everything that everyone is doing. Some of this stuff is going to stick and some of it isn't, right? So I'm trying to be a little more careful with my time. Make sure that I'm aware. So I'll read, like tech articles and things like that. I know like a new product has come out, or a new offering. I know like kind of categories of things. So, all right, these folks are doing images, and what can you do with images? Oh, very interesting, and that's probably the extent of it, and I learn a little bit about, video or something like that. But then I pick one thing that I say, and then my one thing, it was like the custom GPT, right? So let me pick one thing where I want to go a little bit more hands-on and in depth and, really learn something about it. And it's possible I might switch after I feel comfortable with that and say, okay, now I'm ready to tackle like this other area of AI or whatever. But trying to do it all at once is overwhelming for me. What do you
I
think,
think that's
Amber?
very validating. I thought you were going to give me a list of 20 different things to go follow, but I think a better answer is the one that you gave of just don't try to do it all. It's changing. It's changing so fast. Um, yeah, try to keep up with your particular area of interest. I follow some folks on LinkedIn and read blogs, and if there's an announcement from OpenAI, yeah, I feel like I'm enough in it. Watching YouTube videos and creating
Yeah.
training kind of forces me to to keep up as well. Um,
Go to a
but
conference or two,
yeah, yeah. But I think kind of acknowledging that like you can't do it all and still have a day job and family and all these other things that you have. I think that's an awesome answer. So yeah, thank you for that. I have some fun kind of rapid fire questions just to wrap things up. But is there anything else you want to touch on or sort of put a nice bow on this for folks in terms of skills, tech skills, soft skills, the future, all of this?
Yeah, I'll just say like basically summarizing some of the key points that I mentioned. You know, stay up to date, embrace AI, but don't let it like consume you. Bring your human self to the equation. Don't mindlessly accept like, the output from these tools, but like, you stay in control and utilize it as an assistant. And that I think applies no matter like what area of tech you're working in, whether it's engineering or product or business marketing, whatever that might be. I think that embracing AI will do you well, as long as you stay in the driver's seat.
Yeah, it's a co-pilot, not the pilot.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
that's a great summary. And yeah, just think of the opportunities that are out there. 5, 10, 20 years from now, what is the world going to look like? And hopefully, you're kind of building the foundation now to be able to take advantage of that. So, um, awesome. All right, you ready for some rapid fire questions here? Just kind of for fun. What's your favorite AI tool? Now that we just said you can't keep up with everything.
I would say Chat GPT for sure, right? It's like all purpose. One minute I'm using it to debug coding errors. The next minute we're like collaborating on some new cooking recipe. It helped me make like these amazing turkey egg rolls for Thanksgiving, Amber. And like a cute little cranberry dip inside. Like
Yeah, love
my BFF,
it.
really. Um,
I tell
so
it, this is
definitely
what I have in my fridge. Figure out what I can make. I just did that last week. It was
that's
amazing.
right.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, ChatGPT,
Yes.
great all-purpose tool. What piece of technology doesn't get the recognition it deserves?
Oh, I'm gonna go with the QR code. I think that is really underappreciated. It's super like simple, yet it's like a remarkable technology that does wonders for connecting like physical spaces with like digital spaces, we saw like a I guess a greater appreciation for it during the pandemic. But yeah, like you can see like how valuable like a good old QR code will
Yeah,
be.
that's a great one. That's a great one to add to that list. If you could go back in time to witness any technology breakthrough, what would it be?
Oh. So I currently work on open web protocols, and it's absolutely fascinating to create like these standards by which future software projects will be developed. And I often wonder what it was like, when some of the early protocols were developed that shaped the web, like HTTP, for example, right? This defined like how we connect across the internet, and this was released back in the late 80s, and yet it's still used today. So I that's one, like, if I could go back and kind of witness like the thought process there, because I find myself in a similar boat where I want to make sure like the protocols we're working on are as valuable and long lived as
Yes,
as some of
very
those.
enduring. Yeah, love it. Great answer. What significant tech advancement do you predict in the next decade?
So okay, I might be a little bit biased here, but I'm gonna say digital identity.
Mm,
So as like advanced as technology is these days, it's funny that we're still walking around with like a bunch of physical items to
yeah.
identify ourselves, like our passport, our driver's license, and don't get me started with the DMV where I gotta like bring physical mail. Um,
Utility bills, yes.
utility and stuff. So I'm working on like digital identity and credentials that we can use to power things like mobile driver's license and digital wallets that can hold things like, your educational or your employment credentials, your travel credentials, something where you can even like enter a country just with like your phone or whatever.
That would
So
be
that's what
amazing.
I that's what I'm hoping
Yeah, make
is
it
going to take
happen. Make
off.
it happen, Angie. Okay, if you were stuck on a deserted island, could only have one tech item with you, what would it be?
Mm. Can I bring my laptop? If I have my laptop, I think I'm good actually, and
Okay.
we can make it like a solar powered laptop or something, so I get a little bit
Solar
more
powered
juice.
Wi-Fi and solar powered laptop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that.
You would need Wi-Fi probably. We could make that happen.
Yeah.
You write the questions. Um, all right, and then lastly, what was your biggest mistake or learning opportunity in your tech journey?
Mm. I would say allowing shyness to get
Mm,
in the way of innovation and collaboration. I used to be like really really scared to speak up or like share
I don't get that from
ideas
you
and
today
stuff
at
like
all.
that. But once I got over that, like, I felt like that was kind of stifling my career, but once I got over that, sky was the limit.
Yeah, nice. Great advice. I was the same way, incidentally. Super shy. I still am super introverted, but yeah, you gotta speak up. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we are at about at time. Thanks for that. You're a great sport with those. Love your answers. um, yeah. Anything else? Closing thoughts?
No, this was great. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and insights, Amber. Looking forward to what else we'll see with AI and what sticks and what doesn't.
Yeah, it's a super exciting time. A little, lots of change happening, a little fear out there, but I think we'll get through this together. There's lots of opportunities on the other side. So